this global think tank. This is Cyrus and welcome to the Friday Talk Show with Miss Anushka. And we will talk about the revolution in Iran, the flame of the revolution in Iran. Anushka, just say hi to our viewers till we start the program. Your voice is mute.
How about now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, wonderful.
Go ahead, say hi to your viewer.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me again.
Thank you. So, how was the life from your point of view? I know that you are following all the news from here and there. What do you have for us? Tell me.
I feel like this week, with having heard in terms of, the Islamic Republic making this decision to execute, unfortunately, like all these protesters, I think that's ignited a fire within. Again, it's what I see now more than anything is fire continues to grow inside of us instead of. And those in Iran too, right? Instead of them retreating from fear, because this is what this government has done for 43 years, is use these fear tactics.
It is.
Which is no longer working.
Sure.
And at this point, it just feels like it's fuming us. Like it's, like I said before, pouring fuel on the fire to keep looking at the victory, like
That's
looking
right.
at the outcome.
Yeah. Anushka, as a young Iranian American woman who is always involved in the mental health of the people, tell us what strategy and solution do you have or you suggest for a young generation who have been fighting for the past 55 days, of course, with the 43 years plus 55 days, without, this is very important, without any support from either inside the country or abroad. And and everyone have been witness, their cry for democracy has been rising to the sky. And my first question is, in your opinion, how can we continue the way to the destination with more strength?
So as hard as it may be, the best that we can do right now is really to continue, and this is everyone, whether inside or outside, or is continue focusing on the outcome, continue focusing on being the outcome being victory. Because when we focus on an outcome, that's what we're going to take action towards, right? And again, unfortunately, with this regime having done what they have in this whole genocide of 43 years, at this point, things are different. I really can see it. I think everyone sees it, that for the first time, this new generation is not giving into fear. We're not giving into fear. I would never have been posting and doing these things before. I would have been a little scared too. Whereas now it's actually making me want to come about and talk more about it. And I say, yeah, they're going to be gone. So by the time I want to go to Iran, they're no longer going to be there. They've had enough, and it's empowered so many others to rise up and stand up with them and go on strikes and go protest like us, like tomorrow. Right? There's going to be huge protests tomorrow here in San Diego of Southern California. These people are willing to sacrifice their lives for the highest good, for a new evolved Iran. And that right there is the focus. That's what we are all looking for. So instead of focusing on sadness and anger, we really need to focus on the gratitude, admiration of these young souls, the bravery of them. The strategy really is that anything is achievable. Anything that even looks impossible can be achieved by creating a future vision. So we have to continue focusing on what that vision is, of a free, evolved Iran, better than ever, better than we can even imagine. And that in itself is going to make a huge significant difference of focusing why this is happening, why they're doing this, why they started this to begin with. And to know that better Iran is just right around the corner, really. I mean, I really can see, we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, as dark as it may be. And it's why I continue seeing Iran in this cocoon ready to flourish. That's a focus of mine. I have this vision of Iran where there's equality, a secular government that consists of women and progressive men. People have freedom to make their own choices. Schools and buses and everything that's right now segregated becomes integrated. People dancing in the streets. I mean, imagine Charshamba Suri or Nowruz time where it's full of love, joy, laughter. People are pouring in the streets, celebrating. I mean, think of that future, right? Yes. Think of where they can have loud parties without the fear of being raided and taken to jail or worse, right? So having a vision to focus on really creates strength and empowers people to take action for that vision. And having faith in that vision, because really that faith is the key, right? Like when you really believe in something that you can't see, that there's no evidence of, like having faith and seeing light with your heart, even though your eyes see darkness. And it's...
But as you can see, during last 43 years, we see the people of the country named Iran, they have the culture, beautiful culture with a long history behind it. And as they come and took over the power in Iran, there was no Iranian culture. There was culture there, but there wasn't Iranian. And that's why you would have seen the collision in every other occasion, like a Charshamba. You mentioned Charshamba Suri, it reminded me. They couldn't, for the last 43 years, they couldn't convince the people, don't do the Charshamba Suri. And even they come, you know, even their high-ranking clergy, they came and they, with the worst and foul language, they talk about the Persian culture, which is bigger than them, bigger than Islam. Mm-hmm. And it's the culture of friendship and love and poetry. And then whenever I mention that, even some of my friends, they tell me, why you are saying this about Islam? I said, I'm not saying. In Quran, several times, 32 times or more, it says, "Uqtulu," means kill. What kind of culture is that? I know it's a religion, but try to build the culture through the ideology of Islam. It doesn't mix. It doesn't mix. You tried it, 43 years, it didn't mix. No. You cannot force the people. Some people, they wanted to have, private religion. That's another story. But you cannot force people. I mean, I was just witnessing and watching the clip. There's an older lady was convincing the young girl, they were fighting. And that, to me, is a fight of the culture. He says, cover your hair. She says, I don't want to. She said, then get out of this country. He said, the country is mine. You are not belong to my country. It's, I don't want to take any side, but you can see the culture loudly.
Well, the culture's been there for way many more years, beyond even religion, any of these religions existed. So it's deep-rooted in Persia, right? Like Persia was the root of it all. So you can't take that away.
Even in the United States, you live here. In here, some people, they want to just being Muslim, being Christian, being Jewish, being Baha'i. And they are. And nobody tell them anything.
Yeah,
This
freedom.
is the secular society. This is how it has to be. We are not rooting for either one of these religions, but our problem is creating the ambiance of democracy, that the people can live, everybody, with respect with other religion, happy.
Absolutely.
And that way, that's the only way you could live happy. And just leave each other alone. Don't get to the private issue of each other. And as you know, that these days, the term of human rights and democracy is more like a slogan than the real action. And we must take every step necessary for this pragmatism. And naturally, the behavior, speech, and theories that we believe in, both in our personal life and in a social environment, will affect this issue. Now, we come to our second question. As an Iranian American young woman who, as I mentioned, who lives in a cradle of the civilization and democracy, and considering the fact that the West considers itself as a birthplace of supporter of democracy, and in the rest of the world, why did they keep silent about 43 years old genocide in Iran? What do you think?
So, of course, opinion, right?
Yes.
I really believe that people on an ego level, right, on an ego level have a tendency to compete for power and money. I think it's rooted in power and money. And so that creates greed and corruption, which then really prevents us from becoming an actual human race, right? Because then at this point, like, we're not looked at as a one whole human race. Power becomes about controlling and brainwashing others in order to really stay on top. And instead of collaborating and creating community where people can be free to live alongside each other and make their own choices without threatening those in power. And what I see is that the way the world is run by leaders today, it's every country for themselves. We see that, right? Every country for themselves. And whether it's from fear of, oh, they don't want to get nuked, whatever that is, they just think of their own country as their own. I do believe that it is possible to change one day for humans to be all one race, though. Because really, when you look at it, underneath our skin and hair, if you cut us open, right, we all bleed red. We all have the same skeletal system, just maybe men and women have some minor differences, but really it's the same. And I believe that we are all this one human race. We're all one, whether Iran, America, African tribes, doesn't matter, right? Female, male, poor, rich, we're all the same, yet we're not treated that way and being respected that way with love and compassion for all humans. It's more like I see it as animals hunting other animals and preying upon them, rather than being equals, where we must stand for one another, whether in third world countries or not, and really care for others that are being tortured and raped and being treated inhumanely, really, because no human deserves this type of treatment. Like, no one deserves this type of treatment, period. We have a conscious mind for a reason, right? That's what separates us from animals. It gives us the ability to think and make logical choices. So therefore, we must come together and empower those that are less fortunate. And sometimes I think maybe it's meant to be for these evil extremist leaders, not just in Iran, right? We have other parts of the world too, to right now come to surface for them to be fully flushed out in order for this divine feminine energy to rise and take over as leaders. Which, by the way, the feminine energy, it's not necessarily gender, right? Every one of us, male or female, has feminine energy. It's just coming from more of a nurturing place, collaboration rather than competition. So that's what I could see, is just coming from a place where there is no scarcity, because that's where people are living right now. They're living from a scarcity. These leaders, these countries, I feel like are living more from this scarcity mindset rather than an abundant mindset. There's this whole universal law of abundance that really states there's unlimited source of everything that we want and need for each of us. Every single one of us. We have an abundant, limitless resources. And that's the energy that if we were to plug into that energy, then we all would not live in this, oh my gosh, there's not enough for me, so I have to take this, right? So then we would see that everyone can benefit from the infinite possibilities that there are. And unfortunately, many of these countries right now just live in this scarcity energy. And it seems that they just focus on what only benefits them and not the people as a whole. So in terms of just what I've seen is like, oh, let me be silent just in case it doesn't end up causing harm to me and my country, rather than seeing, wow, look at what is happening. It's literally like the Holocaust all over again, and nobody is doing anything. And I wish, I talk about this with Ashkan, my husband, and I say, I just wish that there was this truly unbiased, uncorrupted international organization that really was for human rights, where such atrocities just would not be allowed. Like, it would not exist, because there would be severe consequences to country leaders globally when disobeying these international laws, which I thought the UN was the purpose for that. I'm coming to find out that,
well, it
I don't
was
know
at the beginning.
what their purpose. I mean, literally, I read, like, I actually looked up their purpose, and it says it was founded in 1945 to maintain international peace and security, developing friendly relations among nations, and promoting social progress, better living standards, and human rights. Like, where is that? They even, I mean, I'm sure you know, they even have Sadi's poem at the entrance of the UN building that, I mean, I have this right here. Like, the human beings are members of a whole. Like, literally, that exactly what I was thinking. Right?
Yes.
Yeah, and creation of one essence and soul. And so that poem right there, that is what I feel like we need to abide by. And I mean, it's gonna take something to flush out the leaders that come from this competition standpoint, this feeling of scarcity of, oh, there's not enough for me, rather than looking at it as, how can we look at it as a whole? What it's going to take to get there, I think it's divine feminine energy. That's what I see.
I think, Anushka, you brought a great example, and I like your point of view that all the humans are the same. And when you look at the history of the political history, or literature history, or anything else, you see that the product of Persian culture, just look at it. There hasn't been anything, just love through the poetry, love and wisdom. And their artifact, Oriental rugs, and other artifacts. You don't see any weaponry except that what they're doing now. They never been proud of that they say Iranian built this tank or this jet. If someone say they couldn't, yes, they could. Whomever say they couldn't, look at around the world, in the United States or in the Western society, the best engineer is Iranian. I'm not saying just I'm Iranian, but I'm telling you because I have a fact.
Oh, they're brilliant, yes.
Right.
Iranians
they
are brilliant.
chose not to. When do the real revolution, not the previous one, when they do that, look at their slogan. Look at their slogan. Women, life, freedom. That's why this weapon that they made, it flies faster than any fighter jet that you make or the Western society make. It's traveling faster than light. If you don't believe me, go even to Africa. They know what is the woman life freedom comes from. And has been created by whom? That's very interesting. For the first time in history, see, even when they are demanding their rights, they come up with the wisdom, beauty, and they point at the root of the matter for a human being. Woman. What is the woman? Why? If there wasn't the woman, there wasn't the life. So that's what they brought at first.
Absolutely.
They didn't say life. Because if they bring a life, it could be just around the globe, all animals.
Right.
So there comes the woman. And then woman create a life. And if, when we get involved with the life, without respect the woman, there won't be a freedom. So, did you see the slogan? Why?
Oh, yeah. It's so powerful. And words are so powerful. It's what we speak is what becomes, right? So it's something that I always will talk about, is choosing words wisely, because you're creating your reality. And I could see with this slogan, the reality of that is being created, right? So again, it's having that focus and that vision on that vision of woman, life, freedom. Without the woman, there would be, I mean, without all of that, it just can't work. It cannot work, because at the end, when you oppress a gender, a whole half of human race that way, you're going to eventually cause explosions from the inside.
It's very interesting. I remember there was an expression that I remember my mother was mentioning in a different occasion. And it says, always pay attention. It says, the man is the water and the woman is a dam. I said, what do you mean? He says, go think about it. And also when you mix that with the second part of this slogan, woman, life, freedom, which is men, nation, and development. Mard mihan abadi. Exactly tell you what is the whole life about. Who is the woman? What does she do? Then, based on this idea, what is the responsibility of the man? But, exactly again, look at it. The powerful word, which has a root in everything. Woman, life, freedom. In second part, you don't hear life. You don't hear freedom, because she already did it.
Right.
And if you don't respect that, there won't be man, nation development. There won't be.
Yeah, they go hand in hand. It's like, you know, the yin yang, which I'm sure everybody's seen. It's like the little with the swigglies, right? It's the balance, and it's always about feminine and masculine balance. They both are necessary in order to create really a beautiful life. And without one, you can't have the other. But without woman, there won't be.
Tell you something else about the yin and yang.
Mm-hmm.
That always pointing at the Chinese culture. But I will give you the reason that where it came from exactly. In Persian rugs, which I call it the history and art that you can walk on, there is a design. They call it Harati design. It's very interesting. And you see this, it's just like this slogan, on a outer guard of that rock, of in Tabriz as well too. Well, I remind you what it is a flower, a beautiful flower, and then you see there is two fishes that they are swimming, one from one side and one from the other side.
Oh yes, like yes.
Right? And now listen to this. Beside these two fish, you see the turtle. One turtle swimming inside, one turtle swimming outside. Why? Because the turtle on the right side, his hand is on the head of one fish, and the turtle which swimming outside, the hand is on the head of the other one, that they claim yin yang. Come on. 4,000 years ago, 8,500 years ago. You don't believe me? They find the rock on a frozen part of south of Russia, Siberia or something, in a cave, 3,000 years old. They call it, it's very beautiful that whenever you want to take from Iranian culture, there is a secret code that is going to blow your mind. They called it Pazirak. And that's one. It wasn't Pazirak, it was Pazirak. It means under your foot, first. And then there was a guard, the outer guard. It was the Persian cavalry. They were holding the spears in their hand. And that spears by itself has a huge stories, the development of these spears. And they claim that finally we found out that the Oriental rock belonged to Russians. Where they mentioned it in a magazine called Hali. Even they cannot pronounce it Qali. The name of this magazine, very well respected magazine, whenever we want to steal anything from Iranian, yin yang, Hali, that secret code will take care of you. And like this one, like this is beautiful slogan. Have you ever seen or ever heard or ever studied the slogan, fly so fast? And create a unity. Regardless of the color, your belief, anything, you cannot capture, you cannot hide, you cannot stop. They are coming up with the ideas that, it's losing the color, and the people, there are not that many people at demonstration. Yes, you guys are trying. But because you are blind, those people that they want to, say this revolution is over, it's 55 days, and it's not there anymore. It's not about the number of people. It's about 3 words that, with the 3 words that came up, who came up with this? Those women that came out for protecting the life, and they took their head cover and freedom born again.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting, and that's why I was just thinking about it, that considering the prominent role of the woman in this revolution, and emphasizing the slogan that we talk about, that woman, life, freedom. As a woman, my question to you is, what kind of government and conditions do you think that modern Iran should have so that our women can reach their true position? What do you think?
I really see like we were talking about women, right? And really that divine feminine energy, because I see a government that for sure has, whether it's women or men, definitely need to have women. But underneath it, I believe there needs to be a divine feminine energy on both, whether a woman, because there are women that are masculine energy, right? But really, it comes from having that divine feminine energy. And let me share a little more what that divine feminine energy is. Some might not know, because and look, there's nothing wrong with divine masculine. We need both, right? That yin yang, like you, that's so fascinating. I want to like look more into it. But when you look at the differences, the divine feminine is about receiving. So that turtle maybe going in was probably into the feminine, right? It's about receiving, nurturing, coming from the whole, like looking at the whole and really just seeing people as one, and collaboration, community, not competition, not coming from a place of there isn't enough. And so when we have such a new government where it involves women leaders and men leaders together coming from a divine feminine energy, there is going to be this evolved Iran that no other country I feel like would have even have to this day. And that in itself is going to evolve the entire world to see that that's how you can shift the paradigm of this competition to let's be a whole human race rather than each country on its own. Now, I can see that may take a lot, and got to start somewhere. And that's where I can see Iran being the beginning of it, with bringing this divine feminine energy into power and having women as leaders.
That's very interesting. Many of our viewers have watched your program, as I mentioned last time on Idea TV. The reason I'm mentioning again, I want to just re-emphasize that your program, full of energy, that teach the audience how to feel good and deal with the bad moods of life in this world that can sometimes include violence, sadness, or failure. Here's my question as someone who teaches empowerment and healing, and considering the difficult conditions that our compatriots face every day, and the waves of the bad news about killing and difficult incident in Iran, what message do you have for our people and families of martyrs and prisoners, and how can they strengthen their spirit?
It's such a powerful question, because the way I see things, I see that we have to always look at what's happening as it's whatever it is, even the worst that it can be, and look at it as it's happening for the highest good as a whole, the highest good of each person, even though there's violence and killing and all of that. And it is so difficult to see it that way. I get that. And one of the things that I do always share in my lives is my own situation, right? With me having had stage 4 brain cancer, a lot of people would probably look at that as like, oh my God, I'm going to die, right? That they're going to look at that as, that's it, my life is over. You can take something like that and say, that's it, my life is over, and most likely you're going to create that reality. Or you can say, okay, how can I take this situation and thrive from it? And instead look at it as, what was the whole purpose of that? What is the whole purpose of this? There's a process, right? There is no true gain, like massive gain, without massive pain and struggle. When we have that balance, the greater the pain and struggle, it's the greater the gain and gratitude on the other side, right? It's the pendulum that it just has to be. It's the balance. So if we were to look at this and really just, again, have so much gratitude for those willing to sacrifice themselves and compassion for their families, and still looking at it as like, this is the process for a greater good. Unfortunately, it's this way. And with this regime, there's no other way. I mean, I wish there was another way. Some process needs to happen in order for that higher good to happen. And that's what we got to focus on, is continue focusing on what is the gift in all this. That's what I always say, like seeking the gift in every situation, every crappy, horrible situation. When you seek the gift in it and what you can learn, that in itself will have you live life to the fullest in the face of any circumstance.
That's right.
Just as an example, I also met this woman last week who now does what I do, but on a different level. She does retreats and all that. And she said that it was through her son's death, who overdosed, that she was able to write this beautiful, it's called Beautiful Tragedy, a book that now has saved hundreds of different kids from committing suicide or overdosing or anything like that. So it took her losing her son and using that as a gift and not getting victim to it to be able to create something beautiful. And unfortunately, the process sometimes is not what we want on a human level.
That's interesting. Very interesting. I just want to share this with our viewers and listeners, that whenever I talk to Anushka, my background of education is philosophy and psychology of brain, but nevertheless, I've seen and I listened to a lot of speeches, read a lot of books about different issues. But it's very interesting. Whenever she talks, her words flying and immediately landing in the right place in your brain and your heart, I would say. It's very interesting, and I really encourage you to watch her programs and listen to her teachings. It's very lovely, it's very womanly, Persian womanly, interesting, because it's coming from the bottom of her heart, and that's why I think it flies like their slogan, woman, life, freedom. And here we go, we come to the end of our program, and thank you for your company and sharing this production, these messages, as much as it's possible to help us on the path of wisdom and freedom. And thank you, Anushka, that I know that you have a very busy life and you have one program weekly, but nevertheless, she contributed her time, her wisdom, and her love for the
I'm grateful
woman,
to be here.
life, and freedom. Long live Iran. Thank you.
Thank you so much.